Okay, welcome to my video. It's Fran Hawkins. And today I'll be explaining my metaphor, which is the CDL is kind of like a garden. So I am like recording this on my computer, so sorry if it gets dim or the camera is shaky. But yeah, I thought this metaphor was pretty easy because I do think of learning as kind of growing like a plant. I think of it as like every child is their own little plant, growing at their own pace and needing different levels of care and kind of surprising you also when you least expect it. This poster in the story is really about the moments in the child development lab where I learned how to see children as individual gardeners and how to trust myself as a gardener who's also still learning a lot about how to grow. So I'm going to start with kind of what it taught me about relationships. When I first got into the lab at the beginning of the semester, I honestly didn't really feel connected to the kids yet. I didn't really know the kids too, or at least like not their personalities or their rhythms, what excited them or frustrated them. And it's really hard as a educator to to know how to support a child when you don't really understand who they are as an individual yet. But also, as the weeks went on and months throughout the CDL, a lot shifted. Every time I entered the lab, I noticed a new leaf, a new bloom, a new branch, and kind of like little pieces of each child's personality showing through. And then the more I noticed, the more I got to kind of connect with the kids. Now, this directly ties to our humanist framework, which we've learned about a lot in the child development lab. That kind of emphasizes relationships, empathy, consistency, and really seeing children as whole human beings and not just what a lot of people refer to as like kids or children. And the CDL is really describing like human relationships laboratory in the syllabus. This philosophy shaped how I kind of began my approach with every child, slowly, patiently, and not really trying to judge them. And getting to this point wasn't really quick. It was gradual, kind of like waiting for a plant to grow. But when they did, everything about my experience changed, and suddenly I wasn't really just doing activities with them, but I was also to really understand them. So I'm also throughout this going to kind of talk about my own small groups and like things I did that made me really get to know the kids. One of my favorite moments this semester was definitely like my marble painting small group. My plan was simple. It was just like a Ziploc bag, paper, marbles, and some paints, and the idea was for kids to roll the marbles around and create patterns. But just like in a real garden, plants don't always grow the way you think they will. A lot of kids actually took this assignment and kind of interpreted it as a different way or did something that I guess in air quotes like wasn't intended for. I don't know if we're supposed to say names, but like Kalani, for example, decided he kind of like wanted to move the paper and stuff with his hands and be kind of like more hands-on. He smushed the paint around with his fingers and even crumpled the whole paper into a ball so he could roll it around and paint. And honestly, I loved it. This moment felt like a really good example of constructivist model, which the CDL is grounded in. The syllabus describes constructivism as guiding children in their own construction or experiences, and that's kind of exactly what happened with this small group. I wouldn't say Kalani was like off task. He was constructing meaning in his own way. And after that small group, I learned that good gardeners don't force plants to grow in a shape. They support their natural paths they take. My original idea wasn't the point. His creativity was, his curiosity was, and letting him explore made that activity way richer than I had planned. So now I'm going to kind of dive into when gardening gets really hard. So, not every moment in the garden is sunny and you will struggle. I remember one day specifically, Luis didn't really want to transition from outside to inside. I gave him a 5-minute warning. Oops. I tried to wait with him and talk to him and understand him, but he wasn't able to express why he didn't want to go in and nothing was, I guess, air quotes, working. This felt like watching a plant kind of not do well and you don't know what it really needs, if it needs sun or water or whatever. And eventually I was able to like call another teacher over, and in post session we were able to kind of talk about it, and I was kind of like, what did I do wrong? I'm not able to help him. And sometimes as adults we don't really know the solution because children can't always communicate their needs, and especially at that age. But overall, this experience really connected me back to the course objective about regulation, which explains that children are learning how to exercise self-control and express themselves, and that it's our job to support this process, not really fix it instantly. This moment was hard and frustrating for me, but also made me way more patient, and not just with that child in particular, but I learned a lot of learning, and part of tending a garden is accepting that you can't solve everything in one day and growth is slow, and that's okay. Next, I'm going to kind of go into some questions. So my critical question: how do we balance guiding children with giving them the freedom to grow in their own way? In other words, like, how do we prune gently? How do we water without flooding a plant? And how do we help a child grow without shaping them into something they're not, like being a little too strict? And this question I thought about a lot in the labs, and the more I learned, the more I realized there's not a single answer, just mindful, responsive, relationship-based practice. And then kind of my conclusion, my story of growth. This semester, the CDL became my garden. I watched children bloom, sometimes predictably, sometimes wildly, sometimes in ways that honestly surprised me. But I also grew. I learned to trust myself more. I learned to pause and observe and to honor children's choices and appreciate the unexpected. The humanist and constructivist theories didn't just stay in the seminar room. They became tools that I definitely used every day in the lab and shaped how I think about teaching, about relationships, and honestly about who I'm becoming as an educator. Working with these like preschool age kids, or like 4 and 5 year olds, really is like tending a garden. It's messy, unpredictable, joyful, full of growth, and for both me and them. Yeah, thank you for listening, and sorry my video might have been a little shaky, but yeah.